the last question I had was of safety of women. And Tara Krishnaswamy, while you've been working on representation of women, clearly in panchayats you jump. But I also want to briefly touch on safety of women. Is that an issue that you found people vote on? That if I am a leader who's seen to provide women safety, and we saw that with Yogi Adityanath in Uttar Pradesh. One of the reasons why Yogi Adityanath did well in UP, many believe, was law and order. That women really have a greater stake, some say, in ensuring law and order on the ground level. Do you see that, Tara Krishnaswamy, that that's something all politicians, men or women, need to be careful about and conscious about?
So I'll say three things, Rajdeep. First of all, thanks for bringing it back to women. We were talking about men and especially one man. So I want to bring it back to women and how women vote. So first of all, I think that there is, again, no silver bullet. Women's safety is certainly a key issue. If you take, for example, the gruesome incident that happened in Delhi with Jyoti Singh Nirbhaya, there was public mobilization around it. When women's safety becomes a public issue, when it is brought into the public domain onto the streets, certainly it influences the vote. Again, no silver bullet. Along with various other things, it becomes a key influencer of the vote. You take, for example, the wrestlers' protest. It spilled out onto the streets. But there are numerous other gruesome incidents that happen across the country in many states that don't become public issues. They may be even more gruesome, including Sandesh Kali, for example, right? It is not something that you're seeing on the streets in the rest of India. So whether it's going to influence the vote, highly unlikely. In Bengal, maybe, but certainly not in the rest of India. So that is number one. Number two, I think it's the wrong question to ask whether we have more chief ministers, more cabinet ministers. The right question to ask is, what are we doing to systematically increase the number of women in politics? For instance, when Biden-Harris took office, their campaigns themselves were meant to have more than 50% women, in some cases 100% women-run campaigns in some states. So when they took office as president and vice president, you had 100 women along with them take office in key positions in the administration, including communication, spokespeople, various other positions. Now in India, if you look at what we do to systematically enable women in politics, there has been the local body reservation, 73rd, 74th Amendment, that has truly entrenched that number of women in the local bodies. Now we have the current reservation bill, but we have serious issues with it because of the census, delimitation, and then a 15-year closure clause, right? A lock-in period. And whether that 15-year period has started ticking by the time census delimitation happens, whether we are even going to have one or two cycles of reservation is a big open question. But other than that, if you look at the 33% reservation within parties for office bearers, none of the parties fulfill that mandate. They themselves have reservation for office bearers, but they don't have those positions.
So they haven't.
So what we do systematically is the real question.
That's a very good point, that unless you have office bearers at every level, unless you have women provided greater representation, it's not just about MPs and chief ministers, it's right down the line. I have just 2 minutes on the show, and you are all wonderful women, so I'm going to ask you this. If whoever becomes the Prime Minister in 2024, after the general elections, if there was one thing that you would ask him or her, it's unlikely to be a woman, but what would that one question be? Whoever becomes, and I have just 20 seconds, and this time I will limit you to 20 seconds. Sanju Verma, you've raised your hand. If you had one wish or demand of whoever becomes the leader in 2024 after the general election, what is that? 20 seconds, your time starts.
No, I cannot speak in 20 seconds because you've allowed Nidhi Sharma to misquote me. She says, there are only 2 cabinet ministers now. What did I say, Nidhi Sharma? From 1 in Nehru's cabinet, we've come to 11, which is more than a 900% jump. I expect as a journalist,
11
you
ministers.
have basic knowledge of arithmetic.
Okay, so I asked you a question, ma'am. You're not going to answer the question.
Yes,
what is the one wish you want from me?
An agenda to be peddled against the BJP.
She's made a point. No, ma'am.
Yes, so now let me
You take your 20 seconds. Do you have a wish?
Yes.
Do you have a wish or not? If you don't have a wish, then I'll move on.
I have a wish. And that wish is that apart from women empowerment, let us have gender neutral laws Let us raise the marriageable age actually from 18 to 21. And let us also, not forget that while women try to be alpha males, we just have to be comfortable in our own skin. And it takes a leader like Narendra Modi to ensure that women continue to live with dignity. And that is precisely why 8%
Okay, your time is done.
benefit transfer
Your time is done.
goes to
Producer,
women.
time done. 20 seconds, Shama Mohammed, 20 seconds. What's your one wish of whoever becomes the next Prime Minister or government of this country?
Don't do symbolic empowerment of women. Empower them deeply and in the right way. Don't put one person up there and say this is Dalit representation or this is an Adivasi representation. Empower them. Go out there and see to it that they are empowered in a true sense. And she spoke about Narendra Modi. Yes, he's crying
your
for
time
the
is
women
up. What
of
is the true
Manipur.
sense?
He's
What
crying
is
for
the
the
true
women of
sense?
Manipur. What is happening
Ma'am,
to the
what
women of
does true
Manipur?
sense mean?
What is happening to the women of Manipur? It is Rahul Gandhi who is always there for the women. Let me be very clear. But I want increased representation of women also in political parties, every political parties. It is dismal. We have to.
You made your point, and you also raised, and I'm glad you raised the women of Manipur because they often get lost. The plight of women of Manipur that we saw tragically in 2023. But 15 seconds to you now, Sushmita Dev, your one wish of whoever becomes the next government as a woman.
I'll say walk the talk like Mamata Banerjee and implement the Women's Reservation Bill with immediate effect and unconditionally.
Okay, unconditional implementation of Women's Reservation Bill. Nidhi, what is your one wish of our women politicians or government, the next government?
The Women Reservation Bill apart, there has to be better implementation of schemes and also better political participation, not just Women's Reservation Bill in legislatures and parliament, it has to be everywhere across. So more women should be there at the decision-making table. It can't be just lip service.
More women, more women at the decision-making table.
More women on the decision, yes. Yes. And do not
more women on the decision-making table. Tara Krishnaswamy, you've got 10 seconds. Your one wish, what's your one wish of whoever comes to power?
Gender parity in formal labor force participation rate, no money, no future, and that is where Indian women are today.